Hello there, how are you today? Here we are again in our journey to discover how we can use effective communication to fight bias at work and beyond. And today we will talk about bias at virtual. No, sorry, it's not bias at virtual workplace today. Today is about bias, forgot about that. It's about bias in company cultures. That's what it's about today. And I want to, before we get started, to refresh your memory about why we are here. Why we are here, because it's important that we understand that women face bias due to their race, sexuality, and other aspects that of their identity. And also bias, whether deliberate or unconscious, is holding women back in the workplace. It makes it harder for women to get rated, to get hired and promoted, and negatively impacts their day-to-day work experience. This hurts women and makes it hard for companies to level the playing field. Today, we will learn concrete steps to address the bias of women face head-on at the workplace. So I want to start here. There's something wrong with my, well, there is definitely something wrong here with my examples for today, but anyways, we keep going. Let me ask you, for example, what percentage of women have experienced workplace microaggressions? Everyday sexism, like being mistaken for someone more junior or having their competence questioned. I repeat, what percentage of women have experienced workplace microaggressions? What is your answer for that? What do you think? Big question. So here we go. 73% of them. 73% of women have faced microaggressions at work. Another question. What percentage of the US transgender employees have hidden their gender identity at work to avoid discrimination? What percentage of the US transgender employees have hidden their gender identity at work to avoid discrimination? The answer is over a half of them. So there is another one here. In one study, how much more likely was a woman to get an interview if her resume pictured her without a hijab compared to picture her with a hijab? 3 times more likely. And the last one, what percentage of a Black woman have never had an informal interaction with a senior leader at their company? So the informal interaction, let's be clear here, is conversations around when you're at work or when you're having your coffee, when you're having your lunch. That is what it's meant to say. So what percentage of Black women have never had an informal interaction with senior leader at their company? 59%. What does that mean? What can we read in the between lines of something like that, of a research like that, that the result of a research? It means that these women, these Black women, would have less opportunities to be seen by their leaders and therefore being considered for other promotions or for being engaged in projects where they have expertise. So in a way, they are invisible for the company. So this is a very serious situation here. And today, no videos today, but today I will talk about several interactions, everyday interactions, meeting interactions, several examples here, and we go through one by one. Unfortunately, something is happening here in my setup that I cannot show my taglines for you there, but bear with me, we keep going. That is how we have to handle situations when they are not the way we want. We just keep going, doing our best. So for everyday situations today, here's the case. A coworker asked a woman of color where she is really from. And you see something like that. I never really thought about the implications of something behind this. And when someone asks you, where are you really from? I felt really offended or something. And but here it is. There are certain things that we have to understand that might be happening in between lines, and why it matters that we pay attention about asking those questions. Why it matters. People of color hear this far more often than white people do. I didn't know that. And the net effect is to make them feel that they are foreigners who don't belong. Research shows that when heard repeatedly, these questions can contribute to depression and anxiety for American-born people of color. Well, I see here, yes, and I'm not questioning this, but it's interesting how when you already receive those kind of microaggressions comments in a regular basis, how a simple question like this, that for me personally didn't mean anything, for other people might mean a lot. So this is why sometimes we underestimate and we ask things without the intention of hurting people, but if we do hurt people without knowing. And I think the important thing in this conversation and trying to bring effective communication to our workplace to fight bias and beyond, at work and beyond, is to be aware of those things. And if you say something like that without any intention, and that you feel the other person has, usually is a body reaction, you'll be open to ask, like, did I say anything inappropriate? And if I say, my apologies, and give this space for the other person to express herself or himself about how they felt, and then have an open conversation on that, so that they learn, and everything's fine. The difficulty about all relationships at all levels is when we say something, we perceive the other person didn't take it the way we wanted, but we don't say anything, and the other person doesn't say anything. And this ends up adding up to that person, to you, and one day escalates. So this is what we have to be attentive to. And what to do. You could address this comment in the moment. You probably don't realize this, but people of color get these questions all the time, and it can make them feel like outsiders. You see, if I was told this, I would say, oh my God, I'm sorry, I never thought about that. Although I'm like, I mean, here my chocolate brown color, but I never felt that way. But you see, other people do. Or you could take your coworker aside privately to explain why the question might make the woman feel marginalized, even if their intention is to try to get to know them. I was told once in this virtual environment where you are leading the meeting and you want people to introduce themselves. And instead of saying, where are you from? I think it falls into the same category of the situation here. You should ask something like, where are you calling from? Because also we are all global nowadays and people are calling from everywhere. So where are you calling from? And then you can build, the person might say, oh, I'm calling from this place, but I am from this country. Yeah. Why it happens? Your colleague might be genuinely interested in where the person is from. It might not realize that the question can be offensive. As I said, they may also have a lack of awareness of diversity of Americans, since the question implies a non-white Americans that non-white Americans are not American. This assumption is known as perpetual foreigner stereotype. As this research was done in America, and the examples are based on that, I question here just at this moment if, because we are in Europe, I am in Europe, and it's in a more globalized environment, if this question would be perceived as the way. Maybe this is why I never felt that way. Something to think about it. Another one in everyday interactions. Here's the case. Your team holds regular happy hours after work for networking and bonding at a local bar. You realize that one colleague, a Muslim woman, has never come. Why it matters? Some Muslims avoid alcohol and may therefore feel uncomfortable in a bar. In most networking events are If most networking events are held in bars, it means they miss out on the team bonding that can lead to career opportunities. It can also send a message that employees who don't drink and other groups like caregivers who need to be home soon after work are not considered when social events are planned. And we saw an example, I think yesterday or the day before, where in some of events organized in companies, they automatically disregard mothers because they assume that they have to go home soon after work because they have to look after the children, and they are not even invited. So what to do? Talk to your team leader and explain why it matters. Encourage them to plan a wide range of events that leave out as few people as possible. For example, if your team goes out every week to a bar, consider moving it to a restaurant sometimes. Move a few evening events to lunchtime so working parents can join, and make the change with sensitivity so no one gets blamed. If happy hours are simply cancelled, it may create bad feelings among some employees. There's a lot of psychology that leaders have to have. Emotional psychology. This is a topic that I want to discuss later after this challenge, because we do need to be aware of all of this, because we are in a global environment, even though this is based on in America, maybe they are not considered as global as we are here in Europe, but each person is a world in itself. So we need to be more attentive to that when we are in the leading positions, especially. Everybody should be attentive, but especially when we are in leading position. Why it happens? Many teams and companies don't realize how much thoughtfulness is needed to ensure that work events are inclusive to as many employees as possible. This might happen because teams fall into the habit of replicating bonding events that have been offered for decades, many of which were designed for less diverse and inclusive workplace. And this is not only at the workplace. The other day, I think I mentioned at the very beginning, real fact, I saw an event about a communication, about storytelling, where there was not a single woman in the list of speakers. And I connected with the event organizer and pointed it out. And I asked, I cannot believe that there's not even a single woman in the planet that could be listed as a storyteller in your event. And what worries me is, beside of that, this is the first worry, but the second one is if no women have applied for the position. And the third worry is, if they did apply, why were not selected? So you see, people get into the habit, and we do, of course, the likability thing that we talked, likability bias. You can go back one of the days, I don't remember exactly the day, go back there and look at how likability works. And the same works for us organizing things. We tend to do things that we like, and it's easier, it's a no-brainer sometimes. But again, we are in a global environment, and we need to be more attentive to those details. Another one in everyday situations. During lunch, a client asks your colleague, "How does your husband do?" However, your colleague is lesbian and has a wife. Is sometimes can be embarrassing. Sometimes it's just okay. All depends on the environment. So we cannot really generalize. But if someone says and the other person feels that the work environment, the ambience is cool, is easy with her gender preferences, like with her preference, so I'm sure she would be able to handle this in an easygoing way. But if it's a conservative environment, then it's an uncomfortable situation for both sides, right? And why it matters. The question assumes your colleague is straight and married, which puts lesbian, bisexual women, and single women in an awkward situation. Your lesbian colleague now has to correct a client and come out to them at the same time. The question could also make your lesbian colleague feel at least somewhat uncomfortable or marginalized. Yeah, yes, but I would say people sometimes ask questions with no intention of hurting other people. And as I said, we both like, is it about time for the ones who are in the position of being lesbian, bisexual, and a single woman, and that you feel like in the minority category, that you also, I think you should also be able to treat yourself like practicing and work on yourself to be able to handle those situations as well, because we can never expect that everybody will know as well our situation. This is my own opinion, okay? And now let's see what they say there. What to do? If your colleague answers that she has a wife, not a husband, you can support her by responding warmly and ask questions as you would when someone straight talks about their family. Yes, it's about acceptance. It's about no major, right? This signals your support and is also helpful because people often experience distressing awkward silence when they refer to their same-sex partners at work. However she responds, do your best to be a good listener, ask questions, and feel the silence. And this is why I said we both have to work. It's not only the ones asking the question, but the other one also to be okay, to assume your decision, your choices, right? But then again, all depends on the environment. Why it happens? Often straight people, even those who mean well can assume that others around them are also straight. But the comment could have a darker motive and reflect prejudice against gay people. This is a complete different story. Either way, questions like this are far too common. More than 60 of LGBTQ plus people say they've had to correct colleagues' assumptions about their personal lives. And nearly half say that in the past month, they had to come out at work at least once a week. I think, here's my own, I have to give my own opinion. The way I see now, we are getting more into it. Like the world has been talking about more, and I think we have to be honest ourselves as like as a straight person. For me, navigating this world, this colorful world, in the good way. That I am not prepared for many things, and sometimes, yes, I do make mistakes. I was invited to be a judge in an event in an LGBTQ. I always find it difficult to repeat all of this. LGBTQ plus event where they were pitching for their projects, and all their projects were focused on bringing more diversity and inclusion to this community, to everybody, right? And it was a fascinating experience for me. But when I was briefed, the person who contacted me, he said, first question he asked me, do you have any problems to be in such an environment? And I appreciated that he asked. And I said, no, not at all. But I have to say to you that is not my day-to-day environment. He said, okay, because there are certain denominations for the people. Some people are asked to be called she, some he, some they. And this was completely new for me. I didn't know about this. And then I said, oh my gosh, I don't know these. I have no idea. How can I deal with it? He said, don't worry. You will receive the information about everybody who will be pitching. I was coaching them to improve their pitch. So they who will be pitching for you, so you will go will be working with them. And I will also tell you their denomination, if they're he, if they're she, etc. And that was very good because I got the information. But when I had my event with them, my live coaching session, I immediately introduced myself, and then I told them I am a she. You can call me a she. And for me, it was all new, all of this. And I said, I have here received this information about you. I have to say, this is new for me. And I have it. If I make a mistake when I'm addressing to you, please feel free to correct me because this is a new world for me. So that was my way of dealing with it and being honest, because this is new. I was not used to it, and I was a little bit concerned and a little bit nervous of making mistakes. So I opened the space for them to feel that they could address to me, say, no, please address me that way. And it was good, and everybody was happy, and then it was an excellent experience. So we have to be able to also say, oh, I'm sorry, it was not my intention. I will do my best to not repeat the same mistake. Now, another one in everyday interactions, and is our last one for today, because I also divided this company culture biases situation in 4 modules, because there's a lot of examples that I want to bring to you here the next 3 days, that we can then analyze what if these reflects what happens in your company, in your work environment, or beyond, and with these tips of how you can handle those situations. Okay, so the last one in everyday interactions today is, here's the case. In a private conversation, a coworker expresses resentment about special treatment for women with a disability who is allowed to work flexible hours. Okay, so someone expresses a resentment about a special treatment for a woman with a disability who is allowed to work flexible hours. So why this situation matters? People with disabilities may need flexibility for many reasons. For example, to manage pain or for medical treatment. When those needs are questioned, they might feel undermined, stigmatized, and unhappy at work. But when employees with disabilities are fully supported, they usually just they are usually just as happy as their colleagues. This is a big impact, since 1 in 6 working age American has a visible or invisible disability. As everything, this is my own opinion, things have to be clear, transparent, and in fact also, you give these flexible hours for these particular people, but at the end, they have what matters is their results. It's what they are bringing to the company. If they are bringing the results expected, so what's the problem? And maybe if you feel that this is some sort of privilege and that you can also work flexible hours and still achieve the results that is expected from you, maybe you can negotiate that with your manager too. That's my way of seeing it. What to do? Tell your coworker why it matters, what we said before, and you can also talk to your HR and ask them to clarify your company's general policy on flexible work so that people are less likely to view specific situation as unfair. And why it happens? This can happen when people don't understand that accommodations like flexibility aren't nice to haves for employees with disabilities. They are essential. Okay, so it's important to the people understand that this is not something, a privilege. This is a necessity. They are essential. Additionally, because people with disabilities tend to be seen as less valuable and competent, coworkers might question whether they really need or deserve extra support. This is especially true for women with disabilities who face more bias and disrespect at work than almost any other. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is all for us for today. It's a lot to think about. And tomorrow, we will continue talking about company cultures. And I make sure that I have all my taglines for tomorrow. I don't know what happened. And I hope these examples serve you to your work environment and beyond, and you start putting them into practice because, as we said, and knowing about biases, becoming aware is not enough. Actions need to be taken, and you have here all the information I'm giving to you. You can go back to the previous days, look into what has been discussed there, specific types of bias. From now, we are going to talk about bias in different situations. Now we're talking about the company cultures. Then yesterday I talked about the virtual meetings. We will talk about biases for managers and etc. Not unrevealing now for you, but take those information and these information and go back to them and look at them and start observing in your work environment if certain situations are happening. Go back to the videos or even go to leaning.org a website and get the information, the written information there, and see how you can start fighting bias at work and beyond using effective communication skills. This is all for me today. Have a wonderful weekend, And in fact, tomorrow, because it's a weekend, I will do it a little bit different. I don't know what I'm going to do. Surprise. Maybe I go back, review certain things. Or last weekend, I brought some friends and good friends, go back to the videos last weekend. And we had this conversation and they shared their experience about their biases, experience that they felt having bias over them or them having bias against other people, towards other people. So we all do, as we know, we all fall into bias traps. So go there, and tomorrow, let's see. Let's see what I'm coming across. And we continue this conversation. Bye for now. Enjoy your day, and let's keep working together to fight bias at work and beyond using effective communication skills. Bye for now.